When you're choosing a paintbrush for a project at home, we're going to talk about the right paintbrush to use for the job. In this case, I'm using latex house paint. This is pretty much anything that you would use at home. This is what we use here on the walls in the museum. It's also what I use for murals. And I want to talk a little bit about the different techniques that we're going to use paintbrushes for. So if you're painting out a whole wall, you'll be using a roller and a roller tray to cover the big wide areas. But the thing that trips people up the most is cutting in, and so that just means trimming. So usually you're going to use a paintbrush by hand to get into your corners, to paint along where the top of the wall meets the ceiling, where the bottom of the wall meets the trim, and above there. So a lot of people aren't really comfortable doing this by hand, so they'll tape off all sections. They'll use blue painter's tape or green tape to save them from getting paint on their other surface. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you can save yourself a lot of time and money if you learn how to cut in properly with a paintbrush. So let's talk about how to choose a paintbrush for a job. When you're getting into tight areas, a lot of people's first instinct is to use a really small paintbrush, which can take a lot longer. It'll leave more paintbrush marks. So I recommend using something from the 1.5 inch to 2.5 inch range. This is a 2-inch brush, and for me, this is the sweet spot. And this one's an angled brush. It's a synthetic bristle, so it's meant for latex paint. If you're doing something like staining, you're gonna use a natural bristle brush. But in this case, I'm using latex house paint, so this is perfect. And this is a really great thing about paintbrushes as well, is they give you a lot of indicators of how you should use them. A long-handled brush like this always gives you more control. It's just like in fine art painting. If you have a long brush and you're standing away from a surface, you have a greater amount of control over what's happening at the end of the brush. The way that your hand and eye are connecting to it is a lot more controlled. And then a really common thing for people to do is to overfill the ends of their paintbrush bristles with too much paint. And this is a great indicator of how far you should dip your brush into your paint tray or jar or your can, whatever you're working out of. So that's what I'm gonna do when I go to paint my first line here.